I believe that I can win this election and become the governor, but I know it's not going to be easy. I think it's going to be difficult, but it's not impossible. And that's why it's worth going for, because we do need to save California. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Steve Hilton Show. It is a very special episode. This is the week that I launched my campaign for governor of California. I've been hinting about it for a while. I've been saying I was strongly considering it. Well, I have strongly considered it. I'm doing it. And I announced that this week. It's been wonderful. And our show today is a very special show. It's a kind of reunion, if you like, of some of the friends who were with me at this amazing event we put together in Huntington Beach. It was really great. I don't know if you caught any of the clips or video from that. Perhaps you watched it live. We were live streaming it, as we will be most of what I'm doing on the campaign trail. And so joining us today are three of the people who were with me on Tuesday in Huntington Beach. And we're going to start with our MC, Master of Ceremonies, who did an absolutely fantastic job. You know him, of course, from his brilliant social media activity and on Fox, particularly Gutfelt. I think you're going to be on. We're taping this Thursday morning. You're in New York. Andrew Gruel, because you're on Gutfelt tonight, I think?
Yes, I am.
Fantastic. All right, tell us. I'm going to ask the same question of everyone today. Let's kick it off by just asking you for your impressions.
I think it was wonderful, unbelievable. Every element of it, from the design to the rollout, to the look, to the feel, but most importantly, to everything you said and what everybody else said. You know, after events like this, I always then kind of wait to see what the feedback's going to be online, because while I know it was great, you never know how things are going to be spun. I got to say, Steve, and I haven't even told you this, the feedback was universally positive from people left, right, and center. I got probably 100 messages, emails, notes, etc. within the first couple hours. I think a lot of people were watching this, and they all said the same thing. We're ready. We are ready. I think Steve's the guy, right? Like they couldn't even come up with any detractions. One person said, well, you know, is he going to be able to handle it? And I went back and kind of gave him a little bit of a review of your resume. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's exactly the person that we need. You know what's funny, too? A lot of people wrote me, said, we left California over the past 5 years. If Steve gets in, we're coming back.
That's beautiful. I love that. That's really well. Funny enough, I sort of joke about that to some of the people. I've had some of those people on my shows over the years. And then offline, I'll say, that's the plan. We'll make it so good you come back. I say it kind of jokingly, but that is in a way the ultimate test, isn't it?
It really is. And I'm not just telling you this to kind of blow smoke here. I would tell you if I got naysayers and the people complaining, and ultimately, you're always going to have some of those people come out, but it really was universally positive. It was that, well received. People liked the fact that it wasn't, it's funny. I read one article where they tried spinning it. They're like, he came out hard, immediately going after Kamala. And I'm like, that was at the very end. That's not what he did at all, because it was about, here are the particulars, right? Here are all the things that's crushing California, and here's what we're going to do to fix it. And it was so easy to digest. That was what everybody was expressing to me.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Look, I mean, I've been thinking about it a long time. I just wrote a book about it. So, I've got all that in my head. I'm going to be, I'll tell you what I thought. No, I agree. I was very happy. I feel we got energy and a sense of liftoff and excitement. That's all great. And I funnily enough, sitting backstage, watching you run it so well, and you're funny and brilliant and made the great, but you're just great. And it was such a good idea to have you do that. I was really, really happy about that. But the line, all the guests and the videos, and John Voight, Charlie Kirk, Lan Chen, we had a real range of people. My mum, that was kind of interesting. I'd never heard her talk about me like that. But the thing that was really interesting to me was, that was all great. But then I've got to get to this point. So beforehand, backstage, I made a joke about you when we were just chatting. We were both unusually in basically the same outfit. So dark blue suit, white shirt, very unusual for both of us. And the thing I got to say, Andrew Gruel, is that you look great. And I think I look terrible in that outfit. I really don't like, I don't feel, look, I felt I had to do it because, you're running for governor. It's serious. It's a big deal. I wanted to show respect for the office and so on, but it is really not my natural or comfortable, habitat, as it were.
Well, look, I got to tell you, the only reason I ended up having a suit available so quickly was because when I got on city council, I said the same thing. Oh, I got to wear a suit. I mean, I got to be respectful. It's that or a chef coat. So I had the suit sitting on standby.
I don't know whether it's the suit's fine. It's the shirt with the collar. I find that really, really tough, honestly. It's so long since I mean, look, when I was funny enough, one of the things I joked about was in the video, in the campaign video, that we found some pictures of me, years ago. And but both wearing a, like looking more normal, even with a tie. There's one when I started out my first business, I used to wear a tie, and also with hair. So that was all a different world.
Yeah, well, I gotta say, you really you played it that you had humility, little self-deprecation, and you made the joke with Newsom and his hair and the obsession. I mean, all around, it was just so genuine and real and authentic. Suit or no suit. I think at least now we both know we have one. I have a belt, so that's good.
That's all we need. We'll find. Now we can save California. So
Yeah.
what do you think? I mean, just tell me, what would you yeah, what would you like to see? I mean, this is now we're just a couple of days into it as I'm taping this with you, and it's going to very kind of busy period, and I'm traveling the state, going to all the different parts of the state. What are the elements that you think we need to really focus on? And because I mean, the point of doing this is, of course, you want a great launch, great event, everything. The point is to win the election and become the governor so that we can change things in California. Um, what are you? What would you be looking for?
Well, I think that using what you call him Baccaria, as he says, the quote, right? Remember the quote you read, and it made absolutely no sense. We joked about the word salad. Well, that's what California's become. I mean, they're the artists of propaganda, and Californians are used to these very broad, wide, general concepts. Oh, we're going to fix things by doing this. And it really makes no sense. None of it has teeth. Everything you've talked about, and Califailure obviously is a real thesis on the ways in which we can specifically fix California. I think that the issues and the solutions are so important, but they're easy to understand. That's the thing. As you talk about, this is a man made disaster. 15 years of crystallizing this disaster as there's clots now stuck throughout California that we need to unclog, that there's an actual plan to do that includes specifics, and people want to know the specifics. I think that we don't give people enough credit for being smart enough to understand policy. So whether we're talking about something as general as sales tax and the high taxes from every level, from the sales to the businesses, do you know there's like a 50,000 page document to define small businesses in California? That's unnecessary, right? CEQA, the environmental CARB, right? All of these things that you need to go through in order to fix the problems in California. If people can understand those things and then they understand how we unravel them, I think they'll see that, wait a minute, there's really a plan here that can be executed quickly. Similar to what Trump did in the last election. He said, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z on day one. And he kept explaining it over and over and over again. And what did he do? He came in and he did it. Some of it's been successful. Perhaps some of it he would rethink, but he did it. And people saw that.
Yeah, I really agree with that. I think that that's the it's interesting because I'm just sort of, reflecting on, what to do more of and whatever. And it's, the launch moment is a very particular moment and it's kind of general in many ways and you're introducing yourself. But now is like, I mean, it's literally true. I mean, it's not just a neat rhetorical thing. If you look at the general election in California, it's 15 months away. So 15 months to end 15 years of one party rule. So there's a lot of time to
Yeah.
fill. I think that is right. People just want, and that, because that's the question all the time. Well, how are you going to win? How are you going to persuade people? And it's this. I do think that's right. It's people want answers and solutions that are credible as well. It's not just saying, because this is the thing that's laughable about the Democrats who are running, is they actually, like I said, they validate our critique because they know they can't pretend
Yeah.
that everything's great. I mean, you've got, well, some of them try. Gavin tries. He's not running in California, so he's constantly bragging about the economy and everything. But Becerra, let's remind ourselves, who just announced, and this is what I talked about on Tuesday, literally in his announcement video, says the California dream that was there for my parents isn't there anymore. Yes, exactly. Well, who took it away? The Democrats. So but they don't have any credible answers to that. Nothing. It's just rhetoric. It's just we must solve our housing crisis. Well, how? What are you going to do?
Well, and that's the thing, right? So you know that they can't run on their success. So what are they going to run on? They're going to run against. So be ready that they're going to run against you personally, which is why it's that much more important that we get the voters focused on the issues. Generally speaking, California has taken away everybody's agency, right? The ability to make decisions for themselves. They've given it
Yes,
to the state, and that is now managed through, a library of documents that nobody understands. And that's how crazy it is. So generally speaking, it's giving the power back to the people to make the decisions themselves, giving the power back to the cities. I speak now on behalf of a city as a city councilman. As we look at how we're looking forward for the city, we have to think about all these new laws that are coming down from Sacramento that, quite frankly, we can't afford. They write these laws and they push them on the cities and the people, but they have no strategy, right? It's just this a priori idea. Let's take 1383, for example, which is this new kind of refuse law that's going to increase our garbage rates. It's going to increase our waste rates significantly for composting. And now you got to put all these bins out. The businesses don't have the space for it. The people don't. They don't care. It's going to cost our city millions of dollars and operational, brain matter to figure this out when they actually have no strategy. So it's reeling those things back and giving the power back to the people in the cities. It's that simple.
it's a really great point, and there's a deeper point there, which reminds me of something I really want to make sure we check in on. I would love to do something because this show will inevitably change a little bit. I'm a candidate now, um, and one thing this is a great idea. Could we check in at least once a month, Andrew? Because I think that hearing those examples, like from your perspective now as a councillor, in one of our most iconic cities, biggest in Orange County, um, would be really interesting because it's the details that tell you. I'd love to, those are the things that actually I need to learn about so that I can say, well, this is how I want to help you. This is what I want to do as governor. And you can't do everything because you can't just sort of wish away the legislature, but there are certain things you can do. What are the other things? So let's sort of do that because I'd love to check in with you. Tell me a little bit more, just for the last few minutes we have, about
Yeah.
your experience. This is a new world for you as well. In terms of your role, you're still running the business. You still got your fantastic show, which I'm going to do, the cooking show, American Gravy, right?
Yep. Yep.
And now you're a counselor. So how does that all work? Tell us about that.
Well, the counts. I know the city, and I know the city well. I understand the function and the flow of government, both local, state, and federal. So there's not much of a learning curve there. It's more of a learning curve in regards to the issues and the ways in which we coordinate with all the departments, right? Other cities and then the county, and understanding really kind of how not just the power and the relationship works, but also the money. That's the key piece here. And what I've learned, of course, is how much of that is dictated and comes down from Sacramento. And then when it distills down into a place like Orange County, you've got the county and the Board of Supervisors figuring out how they're going to deal with the laws that even Sacramento doesn't understand what they wrote, right? Because they come out with the titles and they say, do this. And then they leave it up to the cities. And then they go on the celebratory tour to say, look at what we did, even though it's an impossibility to actually execute and roll out. So dealing with those things, dealing with the supervisors, the cities, the state, all of that is very interesting. But I like getting into the detail with the constituents and the residents of Huntington Beach, understanding the things that they think about day in and day out, because they're not these cultural issues that we all want to talk about. They're not the headline issues. They're things like, when I went outside this morning, was my car broken into? Are there potholes in the street on the way to work? Is there a good bevy of businesses that I can go to quickly to get lunch while I'm at work, right? So building a local community business district. On my way home, can I take my kids to sports programs? Are they too expensive, right? These are the things that families and individuals think about day in and day out. They don't think about the topics that everybody's arguing about on X or any of these other social platforms. So I tell you that because I think that those are the real important things that we can think about when we're talking to people across California, is how we're going to give them the power back to be able to live a day, 24 hours in a safe
Yes.
environment, in a good economic bubble with good family values, and removing the state from a lot of that.
Well, that's exactly right. So when people ask, it's that totally chimes with how I'm seeing this role, and I plan to be the governor and say, well, what are you going to do to solve these problems? In a way, I say it's actually quite simple. conceptually simple, at least, because you just got to do less. There's just so much, there's way too much state government, state legislation, state bureaucracy, all of it, which leads to and enables litigation, which is a huge part of the story in California. You and I have talked about the PAGA lawsuits, um, the Private Attorney General's Act, so there's so many ways in which there's just, and in a way it sounds trite, but there's just too much government. There's just too much of it. And so just stopping doing things is a huge part of what we need to do.
That's such a great point. That's what people said to me when I was going on council. They said, "Well, do you really understand? Do you know you're just a cook? You're just a chef." And I said, "No. If I do less and slow things down, I've succeeded."
Yes,
Because we want less government, and you're complaining about the current council. So even if I am the idiot that you're, portending I am, well, then I'm going to slow things down, and that's good for you.
100%. So this is, let's leave it here. But I mean, it's so funny. We're on exactly the same wavelength. When I'm asked, and I did a policy Q&A here in San Francisco last night, and one of the questions was, well, and you get it in a lot of the interviews, and it's an absolutely, appropriate question given our setup. What are you going to do about the legislature? Well, there's a lot you can do. There's a lot that you can do through executive action. You can stop the agencies doing such time. You can do all that kind of stuff. But in relation to the legislature, I mean, the two things I say is one, when I'm elected governor, that will be there will have been a political revolution in California, and I would expect the legislature to work with me to enact the will of the people as expressed in that election. And let's see how they do on that. But I said, even if they don't, you have veto power. You can veto things. And then they come back and say, well, they have 2/3 majority. They can overturn a veto. Yes, but that's a process they have to go through. That takes time. And so it's simply slowing it all down and just, holding the line against the onslaught of this nonsense from Sacramento by just making them, do it again or go back and override a veto. You can just do a lot just by slowing and down and stopping things.
Well, let's hope that we're going to be talking about doing that in the next 15 months.
Exactly. Well, listen, let's check in. I really want to. So that's just what I'm really getting at is those particular stories, like the one about the garbage cutter. I really want to get into that because that's how people understand the insanity of what's going on. There's so much of it that and most people don't pay attention to the
No, they
detail
don't.
who talk about this stuff, and so we need to do that. So I'd love to check in with you regularly and hear what's going on. Andrew, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's an honor.
All right. See you soon. Cheers. Gloria, it's so great to see you, but it was especially great to see you on Tuesday. You were so powerful. Everyone says you just did such an amazing job at that launch event in Huntington Beach. But let's start by, what were your impressions?
Okay, so first of all, congratulations on the announcement. I think there was a lot of spirit in the crowd. The sun came out, the sun was shining, the age of Aquarius, and a whole lot more walking on sunshine. So it was good to see a good number of folks there in support of the launch. I felt happy to be there and to see old friends and some new allies. How did you feel?
Well, I just think that there's a real energy for change, and I feel as if um, Huntington Beach kind of captures that spirit in many ways. They've been very, very effective in fighting back at Democratic control and showing that you can have common sense policies that make a difference. I mean, for me, the best part about the Huntington Beach story is not so much the fact that you had a council that went from 6-1 Democrat to 7-0 Republican in 4 years. That's an amazing political story, but it's the policy story I think is interesting that the policies that were then implemented have led to the point where Huntington Beach was just rated the best run city in California. So I
Right.
think that that's really what we have to convey, which is that actually if you actually break with, as you did, with the Democrat one party rule, good results will happen for you, for your family, for your community.
Right. And I think in the messaging, because I know lots of folks who just said, look, they prefer to remain a Democrat. My encouragement, though, is as the campaign unfolds, is to really reach out to independents and to Democrats who are just not willing to change the D behind their name. Look, it took me years before I finally decided to remove the D. I talked to some actually family members this weekend. They are Democrats. They're going to stay Democrats, but they are unhappy with who in the name of the party that they believe they should have, are leading the state of California. So that's an area where I think we can work, build on, et cetera. There's a lot of, I believe, former Democrats and independents who I think willingly and will want to work with the Steve Hilton campaign to change California, irrespective of what that initial is after one's name. It's something we could think about as we pitch the campaign going forward.
And what do you think it is that I mean, let's talk about how, what is is it an attachment to the D or a rejection of the R?
I think it's both. And I think too, with for me, when I became a Republican, I will tell you it was only because of Donald Trump. Had this been a Mitt Romney, a George Bush, had it been a Ted Cruz, had it been some other Republican leader, I wouldn't have joined. I think there was something very specific that Donald Trump actually embraced working class culture, communities, people of color. He understood it. He was an outsider to the system. And I think that's probably a major part of it. So I think the R is fragile. I think it's more so about what's the program and what you've talked about. And I think one of your strengths is really talking about ending one party rule, but looking at actually the policy, what is being stood for. So this is a chance for especially the California Republican Party to lead with that big tent that is promised us. So, for me, that's really what it was. It was a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
Is it a question, do you think, of outreach in a literal physical sense, like literally going to those communities who have voted D for so long, to those people and sitting down? Is it that kind of thing, or is it more what the messaging and policy? I'm just curious what that looks like.
I think there has to be direct contact.
Yes.
If we take a look at the voter registration in California, when many people say it can't be changed, largely they're looking at the voter demographics, and that's real. I mean, I have worked in Sacramento. I've run campaigns in California. I have seen how campaigns are run, and the numbers are very real. And many voters are not like maybe you or I or some of those who were there at the launch. They're not necessarily political junkies in that sense. So they will get the mailer, they'll get the knock, basically, I would call it the machine marches into action. So I think there has to be an outreach. Very again, too, I'll go back to President Trump. What did he do? In New York, he went to, I don't know if it was the Bronx or Queens. He actually went into Democratic strongholds to say, here I am, this is what I can do. And I think we can find similar ways to do something like, and you've done that already. Jesse Bolguin, who I very much respect, he's the leader of the Latino exit movement from the Democratic Party, a former Democrat, as you know. He and I were chatting backstage, and on stage, he did acknowledge that you were a candidate who went to East LA. You had mole, I remember, because the chef talked about it. So I think it's this sort of, walking across the aisle. When I served in Sacramento, yes, I was a Democrat. Yes, I was considered left of center. In those days, it meant something very different. But people who worked with me knew that I would readily, as we would call it, cross the aisle to walk and work with people on the other side, irrespective of the party label. So if we lead with what's good, and I believe that you do, your whole book is really identifying what is good and strong and needs to change. Now it's sort of putting it into action. And I think you can lead on that and help win those votes that are not in the R column, but need to be in the final vote, the Hilton vote. The R column is different than the Hilton vote.
No, it has to be, otherwise we won't win. I think the other thing that's it's so interesting you say that. I love this conversation because I wanted to do exactly that on day 2. So day 1, you could say very Republican day. It's a Republican thing. Huntington Beach, we get it. Day 2, I was in San Francisco, and I did a policy event, and we did and I was with. I mean, there are heartbreaking encounters with homeless people. I have to tell you, we haven't put the videos out yet, but you wait till you see an old couple, been homeless for 20 years, lovely people. Just, you would walk past them and you would think that they were just your classic image of, drug addict, homeless, street, whatever. And their story was heartbreaking. So there's that. But the thing that I just want to talk about what you were just getting into, which is I really wanted to go into the heart of Democrat territory by coming to San Francisco. And I specifically wanted to go to a place that's very much identified with Democrat politics in San Francisco. They have all their events there, all the candidates go there. It's like a really classic place called Manny's in San Francisco. That's where Democrat candidates have their events. It's a sort of restaurant, and they all go there. And anyway, I wanted to go there, and we did everything we could to make that happen and have an event there. And I said, please bring a Democrat audience. I want to engage with Democrats. And they said, no, we don't want to do it. And so it's interesting that even when you try, sometimes, well, it doesn't mean you stop trying, but it was just an interesting example of, it's not necessarily the case that you're going to get an openness
Right, right. No,
always, but you got to keep trying.
right. And dare I suggest, because I like the humor and the irony as well, and pointing out rules for thee, but not for me, sort of that top down, like, we are the elite and you are the peasants that must follow our dictates, even though they exempt themselves. I suggest we should go to the French Laundry. But have a very different kind of conversation about the impact. What happened under COVID? The
Oh,
shutdown,
brilliant.
schools, churches. Steve, here in Venice Beach, on the beach, there were literally, they with crime scene, the yellow tape that usually goes around a corpse, a body after a crime in Los Angeles. They literally roped off like the skate park, weight benches, etc. They put circles in. I think it would be a lot of fun because we have to kind of laugh almost at just what we see. I think California and Gavin Newsom and most of those characters that are running for, constitutional offices in California, they're basically just failed elected officials looking for their next job to fail up to. So we could kind of run it as a little bit of a Babylon Bee type of scenario. Steve Hilton and company at the French Laundry. Golly gee, a lot to talk about.
So let's turn. So no one's really, it's fine. This is a private conversation, Gloria. No one's watching. Let's make it a campaign planning event because this is brilliant. I'm going to be in Napa next week, so we're going to do it. We'll do it. We'll have some fun with that. Brilliant idea. I just think that's really important. I think that your point is exactly right. That it has to be different. I mean, that to be honest, that's a really big part of why. I mean, one of the things that we're now beginning of day 3 that we're taping this
But
Thursday
who's
morning.
counting?
Very early, very early. And there's lots to do, and we'll make lots of mistakes and do things well and learn from them, and that's what it's all about. But one of the things that, funnily enough, it's interesting. It hadn't even really occurred to me. I just did what I felt instinctively right. I've done most aspects of elections on the policy front, the campaign front. I've had a lot of experience, all sides of it. So I did the branding and all of that for the campaign, the look and feel of the campaign myself with a friend. And the thing is that's interesting is that I guess I instinctively did it. And a lot of people said that's so interesting because it doesn't look Republican, it doesn't look Democrat, it just looks Californian. And I suppose instinctively that's where I went. But it reminds me of what you always say, which I love, which is it's not red or blue, it's golden. That's what it's about.
Right, right, right. And I think too, for a lot of it, it's personal. Even though California, thinking about the millions of voters in California, obviously people know that you're not going to be able to get to every door, knock on every door, be in every community. You make the effort overall. Television, media, podcasts such as this carries it, social media. But wherever possible, I really believe that politics, it's a feeling. How do I feel? And that's why I think even in looking at national polls about whether or not people believe it's right track, wrong track, it doesn't matter when Gavin Newsom says, oh, we're the 4th largest economy in the world, when, as you point out, the homeless are suffering, you can't afford rent, homes are out of reach. I'm here in Los Angeles County where you still see the ravages of fires that went out of control because of incompetence in LA, but also because of state policies that don't clear this up. So I think a lot of it is feeling and affect. And if I may dare suggest as well, I think it would be, and I know it's always hard on family, especially, and especially young children. But if we get to see them at some point in the future, children, I think that's always something that is people like to see, like who you are, but then who's your family? You've got a lovely family overall, and maybe here and there, a vez en cuando, we say in Spanish, once in a while, it might be neat. I really like that you showed us your background. I love that you showed the history. of why your family fled Hungary and the fight for freedom. And so those personal stories, I think, are very uh, impactful, very persuasive, so that people will understand your values. And family matters in
Oh
California,
my
especially
goodness.
big groups.
Yes.
So think
I
about that.
always Thank you, Gloria. I always, I mean, I say because I mean it. Family is the most important thing in my life, and I think it should be the most important thing in the government's life, in the sense that it's what we should prioritize in terms of help. That's where everything should go, like helping families,
Right,
making sure
right.
families can start and grow and flourish and thrive. One thing that was fun, I, it was a bit of a shock to me to hear my mum talk. They made a video of my mum, which is great, you know. And but it was very sweet. And very moving. But I'd never really heard her talk about me in that way before, ever. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, you're fortunate to have had that. And I think your story, given that we talk so much about immigration on the national scene, that's an area that I think is just one of your strongest. I'm not going to call it a talking point. It's your history. It's who you are. It's what you represent. And so many of us have that question of dual nationalities, immigration, and how people have stood in line to go through the process to do this legally and with care. And so I think the more that that is highlighted as well, it's a major story to tell that cuts across again to party labels, because we will find
Yes,
naturalized citizens on all stripes. So that story of immigrant and why you came to the United States, I think it was told in the video, but the more that you expound on that, I think it can really unite communities across the political
great.
spectrum.
This is great. All right, Gloria. Um, I know what I need to do. Now we just got to put it together. Thank you, Gloria. I really, anyway, it was wonderful to see you. I loved the fact that we could talk about it today. Let's do much more as the campaign unfolds. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day. On day 3, day 4, going
Yeah,
forward.
exactly.
See you at the French Laundry.
Kira Davis, how you doing? All right, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked the others. What were your impressions of our great day on Tuesday? Well, I'm leading. I'm saying it was a great day. Maybe you thought it was terrible. I don't.
No,
You say exactly what you think.
I concur. It was a great day. It was actually surreal. Because it's been a long time coming. This has been the worst kept secret in California politics for a long time. And I haven't been able to share my excitement with everybody the way I've wanted to. So it felt like a relief, I'm sure for you too. But the other thing is, Steve, when we were out on stage at the end, where the whole team came out and the crowd was there, it wasn't until we exited the stage that I realized what happened. I just was like, wait a minute. What did we just do? We just launched Steve Hilton to run for governor of California. And I was a part of that. What a cool, unique, once in a lifetime experience for someone like me. And I was really honored to be a part of it. I didn't, the gravity of it didn't quite hit me until I was in my car on the way home. But I'll tell you this, Steve, as I was driving home, my phone was blowing up with people who had wanted to get to the event, didn't get there, had watched it live, and were just thrilled and stunned by the lineup of people that you had, the energy. So I mean, I know I'm biased, but honestly, it was a fantastic event. It exceeded my expectations.
Thank you. Great. Well, you can come again. You're that's
Okay,
fine.
thank you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that the thing that I was really struck by was that sort of that real energy. You know, it was a big crowd that was great. It was a nice sunny day, but there's a real, I don't know, sense of excitement and hope and all the rest of it. And that's what actually, funny
I'm
enough,
so glad you said that.
I really appreciate the fact that with that sort of came through in the event, because that's what I've been seeing on the road actually.
That's literally the word that was running through my mind when I was on stage talking about you. I was looking at the audience and I thought, wow, this feels like hope. I sort of dismissed it because I'm sort of a mushy person. Yeah, I'm a writer but you're right. I'm so glad you said that. I don't think that I am being overly hopeful, or I really don't. I sense hope after the terrible tragedy that this state has been through since January, but really over the last 20 years. And people are exhausted and people are tired. We had a very contentious school board meeting here in my district just last night, Steve. parents are still fighting. When I looked out into that crowd, I sensed hope.
Exactly. And I think that, we've got, obviously that was, it's a big moment, and it's going to be, very different from now on, and some, but we can, we'll have moments when we do that again. And it's going to be hard because everyone understands that you're up against a Democrat machine, and they fight very hard, and they've had it their own way for so long. I get that. But, they've got nothing to stand on. They've got nothing. And so all that I mean, it's very interesting. The media interviews I've had since then, and, obviously when it's a conservative media, it's more, um, positive and enthusiastic, and when it's not, it's less so. But funnily enough, everyone asks the same question, which is, yeah, it's great, or whatever you're saying, fine. How are you going to win in California when it's all this? It's the number one thing that people ask, and it's really interesting because you don't really have an answer other than try. That's all you can see in the end. Is like you put all these other things together, like, yeah, we'll have good policies and this and that, but like, yeah, okay, we're going to try. That's how we do it. We're going to try.
Well, we can't not try. First of all, is that the alternative to not try? But second of all, honestly, Steve, yeah, I get that. And I keep saying that. Well, we can't not try. But I think this is a lot more than trying, actually, this time around with you as this candidate, this campaign, what's going on in California. This is a lot more than time to try. This actually, I do believe, is time to win. And I'll tell you why. We don't have to just ride on hope. Hope's going to be great for motivation and inspiration, but we don't have to just ride on that. We are registering more voters than ever before as a party. The independent registration is growing. Democrat registration is sinking. We've got huge grassroots campaigns across the state working on purging the voter rolls, voter integrity. That's going to be a huge, huge leg of this stool, Steve, to win back Sacramento. We're going to have to, alongside your campaign, all of our grassroots partners out there, all of the concerned citizens are going to have to be pressing their county registrars, pressing their own local parties to doge their own system, to audit their own system. We're going to have poll watchers when the time comes. We're going to have, of course, donors, but we're also going to just have to have people who are involved, who are willing to take the message of changing California for the better. Not
Yes.
making it red or blue. I heard Gloria earlier. Not making it red or blue, but changing it for the better. We're going to need messengers for that. But there are actually solid, real things we can do on paper that will move the needle. I really feel strongly about this.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I mean, what do you think? Have you heard anything? One of the things that I find striking is that, we went into this week, and, with a bang, as it were. And you just think, where are the Democrats? There's something interesting to me about the Democrats who are running, because you've got a lot of them now. Becerra, Baccaria, as Biden calls him,
This
and
never gets
Katie
old.
Porter, and all the other the sort of Eleni Kounalakis, and Tony Thurmond, and Tony Atkins, and I don't remember the list. Villaraigosa. You've had all these Democrats running for governor in California for actually, some of them, for more than 2 years now. What are we hearing from them? What are they doing? It's really interesting. Like, I don't quite understand how it seems to me it's reflective of the arrogance and the entitlement. They don't think they have to do anything or say anything or persuade anyone. It's just the machine will propel them forward.
This is your advantage, Steve. This is your advantage. You have a position, you have something to run on, and not to draw a direct comparison, but when we were watching the 24 elections, that's what was going on between Trump and Kamala Harris too, which is this idea that somebody was sort of like the Democrat pick, but all they had was talking points. And that, Steve, we've talked about this at length on your shows over the years. And one of the things I have always said is that the reason why California politicians are so bad when they get onto the national scene is that they don't have any pushback here in California. They're not sharp. They don't have to answer any push media that's pressing them. They don't have to answer for their scandals. They don't have to be accountable for their actions. They just have total control over the electoral system right now. And that's been, sad. But the advantage to that is that you are sharpened, where this is where your media training is going to come in as well to focus your messages. You're sharpened, but these people have been made weak by never being pressed, never challenging. If you don't work out the body, you can't be strong. So the Democrats are a very weak body right now. Again, that's to our advantage, just as the people of California. No, they don't have any messaging. What could they message? What can they message? They're going to have to run on Gavin's record. I don't know if you know anything about what's happened in the last 6 to 8 months here in California, Steve, but hasn't really been great for Gavin Newsom.
I know, it's interesting. Well, I tell you what they do, and you see this in some of the questions from the left-oriented or Democrat, establishment media, whatever you want to call it, is they immediately go to national and especially Trump, because they don't want it. There's nothing you can say about California. It's all terrible. Every single aspect. There's nothing positive. There's literally nothing they can point to. And so you go, well, even this, I mean, they try with this fourth biggest economy now. They say, oh, we've just gone from fifth biggest economy to fourth biggest economy. Yeah, fine, but it's not working for anyone. What good is that if you have the highest poverty rate in the country, the highest unemployment rate, a third of people can't meet their basic needs, and everyone's leaving?
Yeah, it reminds me of like the last days before November when and still it's still the talking heads on the mainstream networks are saying Americans are saying that the economy is doing terribly, even though it's not, even though it's up. Like they would always add that even though at the end. No, even though nothing. These people are playing with zeros and decimal points and nothing. None of it matters. It's not real. It doesn't matter if we're the fourth largest economy if I can't fill my gas tank. Or, Steve, if I can't even charge my electric vehicle, which is something that is happening across the state. I have both a gas engine and an electric vehicle. And God forbid I need to travel more than 200 miles on that EV. All of these stations that were promised to us, all of this money that came to us for it, it's not there. Gavin is in big trouble, but he's leaving. So he's not going to have to answer for it, but he's going to saddle the next Democrat with that. So all of this adds up to me to like it's not just that the messaging is bad. They have no message. We have a message, Steve. The message is let's get back to making California golden so that it works for everyone, right? Like,
Yeah.
and then we can get back to arguing about left and right and red and blue.
Yes, exactly. And well, this is why it's Trump for them. Trump, 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 Trump,
Right.
Trump, Trump. That's all that they've got, because it's so obvious, the failure. It's a really great point about that national comparison. Hadn't occurred to me about the election. They
Yeah,
keep
don't
saying,
believe your lying eyes. That's
but
been the whole
that's their
Democrat
point.
platform. Don't believe your
Yes.
lying eyes.
Yeah, and they say that. I mean, they were saying that. I would get that all the time when I'd run my list of, when I was talking about the book Califailure, and so I was focused on, the conversations went around that rather than necessarily what would you do as governor. So I hadn't announced at that point, and you'd get the pushback. Well, it's the fifth biggest economy. So look, who cares? You can't kind of go to the store and sort of hand over a little chip that says fifth biggest economy. Can you
Is
give
the
me
fifth biggest,
groceries?
not to interrupt Steve, but is the fifth biggest economy or the fourth biggest economy now, is that going to help my children buy a home in this state when they're ready to start their own families? Because when we were at the event, Steve, the kickoff in Huntington Beach, and afterwards when I was talking to people without exception, I'll say it without exception, every person was saying, I'm worried about the future. My children and grandchildren will not be able to raise their families here. And it's heartbreaking without exception. That's
It's
what
a
people want.
really simple, big point. I mean, that's a great encapsulation of the whole thing. Yeah, exactly. All right. Well,
We
listen.
love our state. We want to raise our families here. We don't want to have to leave. We don't. I know it's fun to make fun of California. I mean, you and I are on Fox News all the time, and we get it coming and going. And I know that it's fun to make fun of us, but we take this very seriously. We take our state very seriously. We love this state. There are so many
Yes,
wonderful things about it. So, don't make fun of us. Help us. As California goes, so goes the rest of the nation.
exactly. Well, listen, it was amazing to have you there. My wife said, "Wow, my wife hadn't seen you speak. She'd seen you on my shows and TV and everything. She said, "Wow, Kira's amazing." I said,
Oh,
"Yes, I
thank
know
you.
exactly. That's why she was there." And so I'd love to do things. I don't know how it's going to pan out. We're still in the sort of crazy early days I was in where was I? So Orange County in the morning, LA in the evening, yesterday San Francisco, today Fresno, tomorrow Sacramento. It's a little bit like that.
This is
So
your
we'll
life now.
I know we're running around, but I really, really hope you can join me on the trail. It's so
I
funny to say
will.
that, on the trail. I'm now on the trail.
I know. I will. I cannot wait. I mean, I know we have a long way to go, so I can't wait for Governor Hilton, but really I'm excited to help you on the campaign trail
Wonderful.
and just share this message of making California golden again with all of my fellow Californians.
Fantastic. So great to see you. Thanks for being there Tuesday. Thanks for being here with us today. Kira, see
Thanks,
you soon.
Steve.
All right, there you go. Fantastic. Thank you to Andrew and Gloria and Kira. That was a great show. It's been a great week. As I mentioned, I'm on the road every day. I have to get on the road right now. So please check us out. We're going to be live streaming so much of this campaign. So please follow me at Steve Hilton X and on the other social platforms, Instagram. Lots of this campaign. You can really be part of it and watch what we're doing. It's going to be great. And then the other thing I really am asking every single one of you, those of you who've been with me all along, who've been fans of this show and even the previous incarnations of the show, whether that's California Rebel Base as we first started, obviously the Next Revolution on Fox, I really, really need your help with this campaign. I really mean it. It's going to be difficult. I think we can win. This is what I always say. I believe that I can win this election and become the governor, but I know it's not going to be easy. I think it's going to be difficult, but it's not impossible. And that's why it's worth going for, because we do need to save California and make California golden again. And that will help every single one of us, not just those of us who are in California, but the whole country, where California is now the best of America after we've turned things around. But I need your help. So please, 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 I know you've got a lot going on, but please go to stevehiltonforgovernor.com. 4 is FOR, stevehiltonforgovernor.com, and please support me any way you can. If you're in California, sign up to volunteer, get involved. We need people to spread the word locally. And if you're not, or if you are, just whoever you are, please support us financially. Anything you can give will be really helpful. I'm not going to waste the money on nonsense and crap and polls and consultants. I know what I want to do. I know what I want to say. It's all going to help me get on the road, get the message out to the people, just as I was discussing with Gloria, especially. Really, really would appreciate your support. stevehiltonforgovernor.com. And we'll see you back here next week for the Steve Hilton Show. Thanks, everybody.